Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 4th of May, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I put out this tweet today, and I kind of wanted to go over what I said here and explain a little bit more about it, but basically the tweet reads, I'm at a loss for words these days. We are currently witnessing the culmination of the hard work of tens of thousands of people over the last few years. It's surreal to see the rest of the world waking up to Ethereum and its potential. Thank you all for being a part of it. Now, the reason why I wanted to expand a bit on this is because I think a lot of people think that I'm talking about the price when I'm talking about this, and I really am not, right? I've personally always been in it for the technology. I know that's a meme, but really I have. The money is a means to an end, as I've explained before. It allows me to do the refuel, it allows me to do the newsletter, it allows me to do all the free education that I do, without kind of like having to worry about money. And I think that's very empowering, and I think what money buys you is time. But for me, and what I've worked so hard towards, for all the time that I've been in Ethereum, is not to just make money, it's to change the world. Like, I truly do want to see Ethereum become this kind of like global platform for coordination, not just for, becoming the new financial system, but also for coordinating humans in a much better way, in a much more radical way as well. So from that point of view, just seeing like the world wake up to Ethereum and its potential after, myself and a lot of other people have been talking about it for, for me, since 2017, for other people, as early as 2014, the really OG believers. And then finally seeing, our crazy dreams coming to reality, all the things that we thought we were crazy about, like, 1559 and proof of stake and, DeFi and NFTs and all this sort of stuff. People are just like getting on board with it and actually seeing the value in it. So from that perspective, the price, I guess, is a signaling mechanism. It basically shows the world that this thing is valuable. And that's what I think is the most powerful thing about the price going up. And obviously it also, from the fundamentals perspective, it also increases the security of the Ethereum network. ETH as an asset becomes, the market cap of ETH goes up, which means the asset becomes better at being used within DeFi and being used within staking and all that sort of stuff. And also it makes the holders kind of like money, and it gets them more aligned and gets them kind of more motivated to stick around with Ethereum. So from that perspective, yes, the price going up is good and everything, but to me, it's always just been a massive signaling mechanism to the rest of the market to say that this is legit. Now, that doesn't work for everything. There are things that are like extremely overvalued, like a lot of coins out there that are really overvalued, but it doesn't even matter if it's true that this platform has, fundamental value or not. People just look at the high price and look at something being worth a lot and kind of think to themselves, well, okay, this must be legit because it's worth so much. So it's not true for a lot of platforms, but it is true for Ethereum. It's obviously true for Bitcoin and whatever kind of like use cases that fills for people. Institutional kind of investors look at this and they kind of like, I think, as I've said before, I think the price action right now is being driven a lot by institutional investors. But they look at all of that and that's just like a strong signal for them. So, I think if you've been around for a while, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say the world is finally waking up, because it took a long time. It took a very long time for the world to wake up to Ethereum, and we definitely did feel like we were building something on the bleeding edge, and we didn't know if it was going to work or not. We had faith, we believed in it, we had conviction, but it's never a guarantee with these sorts of things, with early stage technologies. And I think a lot of stuff within the Ethereum ecosystem is definitely not going to survive long term. There's a lot of kind of like crazy ideas that are happening and lots of crazy experiments. But at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need that to happen. We need that to play out to get to those kind of, next $1 billion or potentially $1 trillion protocols, right? One day. And I think we've got a handful of those right now that I have a lot of confidence in, that they have staying power. I think Maker is definitely one of those, right? And there's a bunch of other DeFi out there, but Maker to me just seems like something that is just going to have like such incredible staying power for such a long time. It has such an awesome product market fit, and the market's finally pricing that in for Maker too. The MKR token has been going up a lot after staying flat for such a long time. So yeah, but outside of the price, just like the fundamental drivers of all of these things, we have like companies like Visa integrating with Ethereum and like settling transactions on there. We have like all these, I guess, NFTs happening on Ethereum and bringing in a lot of new people. So just looking at all those fundamental drivers, and obviously we're going to do the merge, which is a huge kind of historic moment for Ethereum, finally getting off proof of work. And it's the first network, I think, to change from proof of work to proof of stake or maybe it's like at least it's the first big network to do so, or the one that's like actually, you know, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. So that's going to be very exciting to watch play out. But I'll leave it at that for now. There's a lot more to get through on today's episode. But speaking of price, Justin Drake actually put out another tweet today showing we're approaching Ultra Mark III here on the I guess ultrasound money chart that Justin Drake likes to put together here. So it's funny because he's using the 365-day moving average for daily transaction fees. And if you look back, it was only 551 ETH on May 2nd, 2020. Now, denominating in ETH is a bit funny because if you do this to what the price was in May 2nd, I think it was around $300 or something. So 300 times 551 ETH is a lot less than 3,500 times almost 8,000 ETH, right? So this equals about, I think, what is it? Maybe like $25 million or something like that. And this is obviously much less than that. So if we kind of like take this, basically the amount of fees that are being burned is just incredible, right? And I've gone through this a million times, right? I've talked about 1559 ad nauseum, and I won't go through it again today, but I still think people are just going to be caught off guard by this when they're going to be seeing tweets everywhere of people saying, you know, X amount of ETH was burned today because, you know, X amount of dollars of fees were paid, and, you know, and then they're going to say like, these fees went to, the rest of the fees went to miners or stakers, and obviously once they've gone to stakers, the staking APY is going to skyrocket, and we're just going to lock up more ETH. I mean, truly, like, I think people still aren't recognizing the implications of all of this. I think the market is definitely starting to price it in because people are waking up to it, but still there's a lot that people don't see, I think, and it's just like a lot of narratives right now, but I think it's good. I think it's fine. I think once we get to 1559 being implemented, it'll be a lot easier to show people how much kind of like ETH is going to be burned and how much is being burned and all that good stuff there. So yeah, interesting tweet from Justin again. I love when he puts these out. It's one of my favorite charts, if not my favorite chart, to look at kind of like the fundamental value driver of ETH and kind of, I guess, you know, what we're gonna be seeing once the merger goes through in terms of like ETH issuance per year being deflationary, which is really, really exciting. So a little reminder here, Uniswap V3 is launching tomorrow. Now, I don't know if I'll be doing tomorrow's refuel before it launches because the Uniswap team is based in New York, and currently at time of recording, it is 9:20 a.m. in New York, and I record the refuel about the same time. So maybe it's not launched by then. But regardless of that, it's still launching tomorrow, and Hayden has teased, and I missed this a couple of days ago, but he teased that there's a fun little surprise feature planned for the Uniswap V3 launch. Now, I wonder what this can be. My dream scenario is that Uniswap V3 launches on both L1 and L2 at the same time. I probably doubt that's going to happen considering that I haven't heard much out of Optimism lately. And obviously Uniswap V3 is launching on Optimism. So I expect them to launch on L2 like soon after L1, but maybe not a simultaneous launch, which is something that I would actually love to see, but maybe not. But I do wonder what this fun little surprise feature is. Like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, you know, on the spot, especially, you know, the Uni token's already on every major exchange, so it's not anything got to do with the token. And we already know about all the the core details for V3 and like the headline kind of features that are coming with V3. So yeah, I mean, if you've got any guesses of what it is, make sure to leave it in the comment section. But I'd love to see if any of us get it right. I mean, I'm just going to say that my kind of like bet is on an L1 and L2 simultaneous release. Even if I think it's a low chance, that's my bet, and that's something that I actually want to happen. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, just it's going to be crazy. I think you know, Uniswap has such an amazing brand here. You know, Hayden's got an incredible amount of followers, 108,000 for someone who hardly tweets. He doesn't tweet very often. And you know, Uniswap is just such a well-known brand that V3 has been hyped up like to the moon and back, and you know, for good reason. V3 is going to increase capital efficiency across DeFi in a really big way, so I can't wait to see that launch tomorrow. But we'll see if it launches before the refuel or not. I'm not sure how early they want to launch it based on the East Coast time here, but if not, it'll be covered in the next day's refuel. But yeah, very exciting times ahead in the next I guess like 24-48 hours. So Coinbase announced today that they, I think this is their official account actually, Coinbase News. I've never seen this account, but it goes directly to their blog. So yeah, it must be official. But anyway, they announced today that they have teamed up with Sotheby's. I think Sotheby's or Sotheby's or something. I think that's how you say it. I think it's Sotheby's, which is basically an art house. But they've announced a collaboration with them, with Coinbase Commerce to allow Bitcoin and Ethereum as payment for the purchase of a Banksy image at their May 12th evening auction. This is really cool. I mean, this is just more crypto, I guess, like native stuff getting integrated with the old world, so to speak. Sotheby's is like Christie's, that other art house that Beeple sold his piece on. This is very, I guess, like outside of crypto, but the fact that they now accept Bitcoin and ETH is just really, really cool. You can just use your you can use your ETH as money, right? As we say, which actually I didn't even think of that before, but definitely just another kind of, I guess, check mark, another kind of like validation of ETH being money here. So yeah, I mean, I don't think like, I don't know who's going to be able to afford this thing. Like a Banksy NFT piece, or at least a Banksy piece is going to go for a lot. Like obviously millions of dollars here, maybe even tens of millions. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And I'm curious to see if someone purchasing with BTC or ETH is the winner. So yeah, going to keep an eye on that one for sure. So Elias from Bison Trails tweeted out this really interesting stat saying that 1% of all BTC that will ever exist, so 1% of the 21 million, now lives on Ethereum. So this isn't just 1% of the circulating supply, this is 1% of the total supply, which is even crazier. And I've long held the thesis that eventually, and I know Justin Drake also holds this thesis, if you listen to his Bankless podcast, he goes through this, but I've essentially believed for a long time that eventually BTC is just going to live on Ethereum as a token. And I know this is like the most unpopular opinion ever. Maybe not to those watching the refuel, but to obviously Bitcoiners, this is like something that is like sacrilege. And how dare you say this? But if I think about Bitcoin and the network's long-term security, with a capped supply, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And another couple of halvenings, there's going to be instability issues there. And even if the fees made up for the loss in block rewards, there's been research that shows that having a high fee blockchain is actually a security risk as well. So I do think that right now, the BTC has been migrating over to Ethereum, at least over the last year or so, because of the explosion in DeFi, of course, so the utility there. And this does show that people value utility above like so much, above like most things. And that's always been my investment thesis for ETH, is that its utility and its like sound money properties or ultra sound money properties would propel it to being worth more than Bitcoin. And I still to this day believe in the flippening. I believe in it more than ever right now. But ever since like I discovered Ethereum and ETH and kind of came to terms with the fact that I truly believe that the utility value is worth more than just like the belief value. I've believed in the flippening there, but still fun to see, 1% of BTC on Ethereum here. And the funny thing is that this is not like BTC on Ethereum is not a special asset. It's just like any other asset on Ethereum. Whereas ETH is actually a special asset on Ethereum, and it sets itself apart from all the other assets and all the other tokens. It's the only trustless collateral in DeFi. It's the only asset that can be used to pay fees. And post 1559, it'll be the only asset that gets burned with fee revenue. It's the only asset that can be used in staking, right? It is the natural unit of account and medium of exchange for Ethereum because it's used to pay gas fees. So it's just that kind of easyability there. It's going to be the MOE and UOA of layer 2 solutions. So ETH as an asset is very unique on Ethereum. It's basically Ethereum's national currency, whereas BTC is like a foreign currency. It doesn't have any special powers. You can't pay fees in BTC directly to the chain. Maybe you can do meta transactions where you pay fees in BTC and then in the background it gets changed for ETH and then eventually settles on the Ethereum network as ETH for fees. But that's not the same thing as just paying directly, right? And that's actually good because you're still paying ETH, you're still burning ETH post 1559 here. So from that point of view, BTC is just like any other asset on Ethereum besides ETH. So it's like any other token, so to speak. It has no special privileges. And, a lot of this BTC is actually WBTC, which is a centralized tokenized version of BTC. So it's even, I guess, like worse than some of the assets on Ethereum because it's centralized. So yeah, I think just it's fun to see this. It's a fun little metric here. And it just shows that Ethereum is the global settlement layer. It is going to suck in all types of value no matter what it is because the Ethereum network gives you so much utility and at the end of the day. So Trent put out a tweet here today saying that the Ethereum CatHerders, who I've spoken about before, they basically cover, ETH1, ETH2 developments in a really good, really nice kind of like, I guess it's fortnightly update here. But they essentially have a newsletter now. So you can sign up here and it'll basically give you I guess an email straight to your inbox of all the upgrades happening at the protocol level for ETH1 and ETH2. So this becomes one of the best ways to keep up with, Ethereum protocol development. I still think ETH2.news is a really great resource for keeping up with ETH2, but Ethereum CatHerders is probably the best resource for keeping up with ETH1. So if you haven't signed up to this newsletter, be sure to do so. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below for you to go check out. So TZ Talk Chad on Twitter today has announced their new project called Dopex, or Decentralized Options Exchange. That's what Dopex stands for. So this is another, I guess, like options exchange protocol on Ethereum. There's a few of these now. I think there's over 10 of these on Ethereum right now. But TZ Talk here basically says that currently all of these options protocols share some problems, right? Such as low liquidity, unfair pricing, lack of composability, lack of user adoption, lack of protocol adoption, and unfair arb opportunities during times of high volatility. Now, he goes on to say, while solving all of these problems may seem like a difficult task, his team at Dopex have spent I don't know if it's a he or she, I should say, their team, maybe it's like Satoshi, right? We don't know exactly who they are, but their team has spent quite a bit of time thinking through and building the product and structuring their early partnerships to highly increase Dopex's chances of solving them without compromising on the buyer and rider experience here. So there's a long thread here explaining exactly what Dopex is, what it does, what sets it apart, all that good stuff, and their backers, some of the premier anons within the space, like Tetranode and DeFi God, with a bunch of others, other kind of people on board as well here. So yeah, if you're interested in checking out this, it'll be linked in the YouTube description. You can go read for full details here. But it's definitely an interesting project, and I am yet to see like a truly great decentralized options protocol on Ethereum just yet. I mean, Open and Ribbon Finance, and there's like Opium and Hedgic. There's a bunch of them out there right now, but none of them have kind of achieved, I guess, like some significant growth just yet. It's significant sustained growth. So I'm interested to see if Dopex solves that here. But yeah, definitely go check out this thread, which will be linked in the YouTube description below. So this was quite interesting, and I wrote about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter today, but essentially the Maker Foundation transferred the remainder of its dev fund, which was 84,000 MKR or $464 million, to the Maker DAO, which means that the, I guess, like centralized Maker Foundation does not have control over this money anymore. The MKR token holders now have control over this as part of the governance process that the Maker protocol goes through. And obviously the Maker Foundation has done this to increase Maker's decentralization, and the foundation actually wants to dissolve itself as well. It wants to kind of get rid of itself, which is obviously a key part in Maker's decentralization journey here. So this is cool. And what I wrote about in the newsletter today was this concept of like DAO treasuries, right? Where there's a lot of new projects, specifically DeFi projects, launching these days as a DAO first, and then they have like a massive treasury because they keep most of their tokens in this treasury instead of giving it out to, like, whether it be team investors in a public sale or whatever. And Uniswap is the clear example here of something that has like a massive treasury. Their current value of their vested treasury is about $7.4 billion. And then they've got more treasury vesting out over the next, I think, 2 and a bit years, which is a further, I think, maybe 16, 17, 18 or something billion dollars. So it's a huge amount of money, right? And what they can do with this treasury is that they can actually use this to do things like fund grant programs, which Uniswap has, right? And so do a bunch of other apps out there. But fund grant programs, do liquidity mining programs, maybe sell some tokens to strategic investors to diversify the treasury, and basically do whatever they want. And, pay contributors to the protocol as well, pay people to work for the protocol, which is exactly what Maker's doing now. The Maker protocol has like a bunch of people on their payroll. And I'm assuming this MKR is also going to be used to kind of fund that. But also what's used to fund that is the revenue generated by the protocol as well, which token holders have a claim on and can vote to do whatever they want with, which I think is really, really awesome. And this is in stark contrast to what we saw happen in 2017, where a lot of DeFi projects launched and they didn't launch with like a treasury that token holders could govern over. They would typically sell a lot of their tokens in an ICO, which would obviously go to speculators, and it wouldn't go to the people that you wanted it to go to. And I think when launching a token and distributing it, you need to get it into the hands of long-term contributors. And the way you do this is essentially paying it out to contributors to the protocol early on. And I think the team that has done this best, or the DAO that has done this best, is the Index Co-op. Now, the reason why I say this is, one, I'm closely related to the Index Co-op and I follow it quite closely because of my involvement with SET. But two, I truly do believe, like, from all the teams that I've looked at and all the DAOs that I've looked at and all the token distributions I've looked at, Index Co-op has done it best because they got their tokens into the hands of early contributors when the token price was much lower. It was like $2 to $4 back when contributors were being paid like large amounts for their initial, early work, and now it's worth almost $60 the token. So these early contributors are up anywhere from are up like 20x or something if they basically got it at $2 and they held on to it. So you essentially, what you do is you make your early community rich, right? You make them basically socially and financially aligned with the protocol, and then they just keep working for the protocol, right? Some of them can retire from their jobs or quit their jobs and just work for the protocol. Some of them use that money to better their lives or whatever, and they feel this like kind of, I guess, obligation to keep helping the DAO out. So I think that is a very different model to what we saw play out in 2017. It's a much more sustainable model. It's a much better model for bringing the right people on board. So yeah, kudos to the Maker Foundation for doing this. This is not a small sum of money. And I'm curious to see how the Maker DAO, I guess, distributes this going forward. So a big piece of news out of PayPal, well, I guess from the block here, where they basically said PayPal has held exploratory talks about launching a stablecoin. So essentially, I guess this article doesn't go into too much more detail here, but it does say one thing which I thought was weird, where it basically says that Ava Labs, the team behind the Avalanche blockchain, is one of the organizations that has held talks with PayPal over stablecoin development. And it just says here one of the organizations, so I'm going to assume Consensus has talked to PayPal, because Consensus I would consider Ethereum's enterprise arm. And I would assume that some of the other kind of chains have obviously gotten into contact with PayPal and trying to like woo them over. But I would be surprised for PayPal to launch their stablecoin on a smaller network. I mean, I would obviously love them to launch it on Ethereum or an Ethereum layer 2. And I think it would make a lot more sense. But at the same time, does PayPal really need to launch a stablecoin? Shouldn't they just partner with something like, Coinbase and Circle to basically do, help along with USDC? Do they have to launch their own? And I'm sure their own would probably be good and more profitable to launch because they could integrate it with their entire like payments network on PayPal, and they have like hundreds of millions of active users. But I just do wonder, like, what the kind of aim here. Does it end up like a Libra situation or a DM, I think it's called these days, from Facebook, where it just gets stuck in development and regulatory hell? Or does it become like the premier way to pay on PayPal eventually? So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I will be surprised if it launches on something like Avalanche here. Not that I dislike Avalanche or anything like that, or I think it's a bad chain. I just think that if you're going for network effects, right, and you're going for settling on a secure network that's proven itself over time, then you definitely want to do it on Ethereum or maybe an Ethereum L2. But we'll see how that plays out. Exciting news regardless, I think. The next bit of news here is that the eBay CEO basically said on a CNBC interview that they're exploring opportunities on how to enable NFT selling on eBay. Now, I don't think this is actually anything special. Like, I don't want to sell my NFT on eBay. I don't want to buy NFTs on eBay. I want to do that on crypto native platforms like OpenSea, right? Or any of the other platforms out there. Like, there's a bunch of them now. I think it's like 15 of them. But still, this just validates NFTs even further, gets more eyeballs on it, right? Opens up the NFT market to a bunch of newer kind of customers here on eBay, rather than, a lot of these customers aren't going to be using the crypto native solutions. But again, as I said, I don't think that this is anything special. It's just the, I guess, traditional world, merging with the crypto native world, which is we're going to see more and more of this happen. But my long-term bet is on the crypto native solutions rather than these, centralized solutions. And I mean, these centralized solutions and these kind of old traditional solutions are going to be, integrating across like not just NFTs, but with DeFi. Like, I expect eventually banks to be plugging in, and people will use these centralized institutions because they trust them and they want them to basically handle all the hard stuff for them. And that's fine. I guess it just like opens up the pool of users we have that can access all of this technology. And I think, when you think about eBay as a platform, it's like the boomer platform, right? It's part of the old world, the old internet, which is hilarious because eBay was definitely a breakout app of the early internet here. But yeah, still fun to see this. I wonder if they would have like a separate section for NFTs rather than put it in the normal flow when you search on eBay. I would think they might, and maybe they'll just start like an NFT marketplace themselves, but that is getting very saturated right now, because you have, as I said, you have like OpenSea, there's like Foundation and Super Rare and Rareable. I mean, there's so many of these platforms now that I think that is going to become saturated, and over time there's only going to be a handful of big winners here. But eBay has the advantage of having a massive user base already, so we'll see what happens. I guess, like, you know, the CEO just saying things like they're exploring opportunities means that they're probably still in the early phases of this. They probably haven't built anything outside of maybe a proof of concept. So, and they're a massive organization, so they obviously move slower than the smaller startups in the ecosystem. But I'll keep an eye on this and see what happens over time here. So this is the last bit of news I wanted to talk about, or I guess like stats I wanted to show. So Dune Analytics posted this tweet yesterday, and basically saying that DEX volumes are 100 times higher than they were in April of 2020 for April of 2021, which is absolutely insane, right? And the total volume for April landed at $77.5 billion on decentralized exchanges here, and Uniswap obviously dominated. Now, I went over DEX volumes on the Daily Gwei data pump, which you can check out if you haven't yet, so I won't rehash that here. But, you know, I actually want to draw attention to this. Now, where Dune Analytics said, now let's see what Uniswap V3 can do with these numbers. Now, I don't think... So, it's an interesting thing, because Uniswap V3, as I was saying, is going to bring like intense capital efficiency into DeFi, because it allows you to do concentrated liquidity, which means that you can get more bang for your buck, so to speak, right? You can get more volumes through it. But Uniswap V3 on L1 doesn't solve the current gas issues that's pricing out a lot of users. So I think Uniswap V3 on L2 is what's going to drive these volumes up to the next level and get us to $1 trillion traded a month on DEXs, right? And not just Uniswap on L2, but also the other DEXs like Balancer and Curve and SushiSwap and 0x and all the other DEXs out there. Once they all migrate to a layer 2, that's when I think we can keep growing, because as I showed in the data pump episode, I think the last 4 months, the volumes have been about the same. And that's because, like, I think we're just not bringing in these new users because they're using the cheaper chains right now, or the more centralized cheaper chains like BSC. And some of them are using like the Polygon, and there are some out there like Loopring that are on L2 already, and Diversify and things like that. But none of the breakout L1 DEXs are on L2 just yet. And I do think, and I've written about this before, that Uniswap and L2 is going to be a game changer. It's going to absolutely show the world that Ethereum can scale, and it can scale with a wonderful user experience, with like you know, very cheap if free transactions, you know, free trades on Uniswap, and very fast, right? Much faster than mainnet, because mainnet will take you, you know, anywhere, depending on the fee that you pay, it can take you from anywhere from 15 seconds to a minute or whatever. Whereas on L2, it's much faster. And gone are the days of like out of gas error, right? Gone are the days of like reverted because it took too long to mine the transaction. So I think L2 is definitely going to be a massive game changer here, not just for costs and speed, but also for those little things that I just mentioned. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But V3 launches tomorrow, as I mentioned at the start of the refuel. I'm kind of very, very, very excited for that, actually, and very excited to see how the rest of the ecosystem takes it on here. But yeah, that's it for today's episode. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.